Fathers in this world are supposed to be very protective of their children, but sadly, there are too many cases where fathers take out their angers and frustrations on their kids, especially their teenaged daughters. This is a case of the Khachaturyan sisters, where they have had enough of their father's abusive behavior and doing what they thought was the best thing they could do to protect themselves and ultimately protecting their lives. This is the case of Russia's Khachaturyan sisters. During the summer of 2018, shocking news emerged from Moscow that sent ripples through Russia's society. Three sisters, namely Christina, aged 19, Angelina, aged 18, and Maria, aged 17, were implicated in the murder of their 57-year-old father, Mikhail Khachaturyan, who had sustained multiple knife wounds. In the aftermath, the disturbing truth about the murder and its underlying causes surfaced. It was revealed that Mikhail had subjected his own daughters to years of molestation and abuse, shedding light on the harrowing circumstances that led to his tragic death. Mikhail Khachaturyan, born in 1961, spent a significant portion of his life in Baku, Azerbaijan. However, due to the ethnic conflict in the 1980s and the Khachaturyan family being Armenians, they were compelled to leave Azerbaijan and resettled in Moscow. Originally intending to relocate to the US, the family ultimately opted to remain in Russia. Little was known about Mikhail's professional life, not even by his own family, though there were rumors linking him to the criminal underworld, possibly through involvement in some criminal organization. What remains evident is that Mikhail led an affluent life, boasting sufficient wealth for comfort, owning a high-quality car, and indulging in frequent travels. Surprisingly, his journeys were predominantly pilgrimages, with Jerusalem being a recurrent destination, indicating a deeply religious disposition, as attested by those who knew him. In 1996, Mikhail crossed paths with Aurelia Dudonc, a 17-year-old who had relocated to Moscow from Moldova to work alongside her mother. Mikhail was immediately taken with Aurelia, and they were eventually formed as a union. The following year saw the arrival of their first child, Sergei, and within another year, they established a home together in Mikhail's apartment. For the subsequent decade, they resided with Mikhail's relatives. Throughout this period, Mikhail exhibited severe abuse towards his wife and his child. Perceiving Aurelia more as a personal servant and as a slave, he subjected her to relentless physical abuse, even in the presence of his own relatives. In these episodes, he would inflict severe beatings, causing her to bleed, only to follow it with casual demands like, "Aurelia, make me some tea," as if the prior violence had never occurred. However, Aurelia went on to give birth to 3 more children, the daughters Christina, Maria, and Angelina. As their eldest son, Sergei entered adolescence, Mikhail's aggressive behavior extended to him. The young boy faced humiliation, verbal abuse, and even physical beatings, with instances where Mikhail would menacingly brandish one of the many weapons he kept at home. When Sergei turned 16, Khachaturyan forcibly expelled him from their home. Left without a stable place to reside, Sergei the son had to seek refuge in the homes of relatives or friends, sometimes resorting to sleeping on the streets or in the entrance halls of apartment buildings. Following Sergei's departure, Aurelia's time in the apartment was also short-lived. Approximately a year later, in 2015, Mikhail Khachaturyan ejected her as well, asserting that she had failed to fulfill her wifely duties. Subsequently, Mikhail Khachaturyan remained in the apartment solely with his 3 daughters. Their freedom was severely restricted, requiring them to inform Mikhail before leaving their apartment. He went so far as to install surveillance cameras outside their residence to monitor their movements, forbidding them from inviting anyone into the apartment. He began treating the daughters as though they were his domestic slaves, assigning them tasks such as ironing his clothes and managing household chores like cooking and cleaning. Consequently, their academic attendance suffered, with frequent absences from their classes. On certain occasions, Mikhail either prohibited them from attending classes or their exhaustion made studying impractical. There is a belief that one of the motivations behind Mikhail evicting Aurelia from the apartment was his discomfort in behaving inappropriately in her presence, which served as a restraint on his mistreatment of his daughters. However, once she left, he no longer faced any impediments to his actions. He would mostly harass his eldest daughters, who were Angelina and Christina. He would call one of these girls to come into his room and give him a massage, but his idea of a massage was through masturbation. He would force the girls to go down on him, telling them that it was good for his prostate. Christina, on a family vacation in 2016, tried to take her own life when her father tried forcing her again to go down on him. She was rushed to the hospital where doctors were able to save her life. For years, the sisters endured a life marked by fear and stringent control under their father. Even during Mikhail's temporary absences from their home, his return heralded an inspection of the sisters' activities. Any deviation from his expectations provoked his intense anger. This explosive situation unfolded on July the 27th, 2018, upon Mikhail's return from a hospital stay. His first source of fury was discovering that, in his absence, the sisters had invited their brother Sergei and some friends into their apartment. Compounding his anger was a financial issue. During Mikhail's hospitalization, the sister has spent approximately 15,000 rubles or 190 US dollars from Christina's bank card. In a fit of rage, Mikhail resorted to using pepper spray on the sister's face, leaving Christina feeling profoundly distressed and on the verge of fainting. Despite attempting to assist her in the bathroom, Mikhail Khachaturyan persisted in his harassment. When Mikhail eventually succumbed to sleep after his harrowing ordeal, the sisters, convinced that they could no longer endure his reign of terror, felt compelled to take a drastic step. They believed attacking their father in his sleep was their only recourse. Mikhail met a tragic end when his daughters, armed with his own hunting knife, a hammer, and a pepper spray, decided to take his life. The following day, the sisters found themselves in custody, facing charges of premeditated homicide without mitigating circumstances, an offense carrying severe circumstances and consequences under the Russian Penal Code. If convicted, the sisters could potentially face up to 20 years in a Russian jail. In August 2018, the sisters provided detailed testimony shedding light on their life with their father and disclosing instances of his abusive behavior, including sexual abuse. Subsequent to a psychiatric evaluation in September 2018, it was determined that the youngest sister, Maria, lacked awareness of her actions. As a result, she might not face imprisonment, but could be directed to receive treatment in a psychiatric hospital. The two older sisters, Christina and Angelina, were released from detention but are now bound by various pretrial restrictions. These include nighttime curfews, internet usage limitations, and a ban on contact with each other. The fate of the sisters remains uncertain, as the announcement of their sentence is now pending at the time this video is being made. The legal proceedings involving the Khachaturyan sisters stirred a robust public response and became a frequent topic of discussion on state television channels. Protests and solitary demonstrations against the potential verdict took place in major cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg. Advocates for the Khachaturyan sisters initiated a petition urging the investigation committee to stop the criminal proceedings, and by July 2019, over 115,000 people had endorsed this petition. The public outcry stemmed from the case's implications for the current Russian judicial systems. Elena Solovia, the head of the advocacy association Soda V, suggested that the Khachaturyan sisters might prompt a re-evaluation of the concept of necessary self-defense and broaden its legal application. Media outlets and social media users engaged actively in discussions about the ethical aspects of the trial and the issue of diaspora silence. Nevertheless, some critics scrutinized the sisters' behaviors, citing their seemingly happy demeanor in photos on social media. So, ladies and gentlemen, tell me your own thoughts about this case. Leave your agreements and your disagreements in the comments section below. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more.